Whether it was witchery, some modern science, or a demon let loose from hell, I am unable to decide. Williams Bell from an authenticated history of the Bell Witch.
Who's there?
From 1817 to 1821, an entity calling itself Kate tormented the Bell family of West Tennessee. There is still no widely accepted explanation for this haunting. Coming summer 2024, on the new hit audio drama Afflicted, the Bell Witch returns to haunt a family in 1960s Tennessee, but only if we raise enough money to pay our cast and crew a living wage. Help bring this haunting to life and snag exclusive rewards like limited edition supporter t-shirts, producer credits, and more at afflictedaudio.com/support. But do it quickly. Some perks are limited only to early supporters.
Good evening.
Staring into the Abyss. I'm your host, Richard Gerlach. With me, as always, is Matt Brandenburg.
Yeah, I'm just taking all these touring buses and visiting some museums and then maybe a grocery store. We'll see how it goes.
And I see packing away a nice Orlando, Florida t-shirt is Vitlame Mist.
Honestly, it's better than doing the Reykjavik experience, so yeah.
And we have a very special guest today with extreme horror author Judith Sonnet.
Hi.
Hi, welcome.
Welcome.
Happy to be here.
Yeah. We're so happy to have you.
I know, it's super awesome. When Rich said you were coming, I was like, sweet.
Me too. Yeah, you've been busy, girl.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's been a crazy year already.
I admire that.
I've lost count of how many books you've put out since the start of the year.
Genuinely, me too.
That's the best way to think of it. It's like, I'm just throwing out a book and I don't give a shit and I'm gonna do a new one.
Yeah. I don't think to keep things in order. So I had someone ask, how many books have you released? And my real answer was, I don't know.
It's funny watching you and then Brian Barry too, because he's also
he's a workhorse.
He is
fantastic. He does so much.
Oh, I know, it's awesome. Hey, and by the way, we're gonna be TOC buddies in his anthology.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
the video game one.
Yes.
That's
yeah,
exciting.
I'm really excited about that.
Oh, it's gonna be super rad. I as soon as I saw that cover, I was like, oh, I have a perfect story for this. And then when I think you were the first one named, I was like, oh, I so hope I hear from him.
Yeah, I had fun with that story. That's mine is about a video game streamer who's about to get canceled, who accepts an offer to play a strange new game by a weird developer, and it gets out of hand.
Oh, I love that. That premise sounds so good.
That sounds really great.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. But yeah, both you and Brian are inspirations, especially with because you're, and I could be wrong because again, we just said you have a lot coming out, which is great, but you're doing a novelization for Encyclopocalypse, right?
I am. I'm working on a novelization for Sleepaway Camp.
Yes.
Really?
It's so exciting. Don't expect it anytime soon though, because we don't have access to the physical script.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
So I have to basically like watch the movie, pause it, write, watch the movie, pause it, and write. So
I mean, you're going old school, man. I definitely think a lot of people did that without the internet, you know?
Yep, it didn't happen.
Yeah. I bet you that makes the movie quite the experience, having to watch it and pause it and then watch it and pause it.
I feel like I'm living on Camp Arawak. Well, and it's fun because there are now moments where I'm just like, I don't want to watch this part. I'm just going to try and reconstruct it from memory and see what happens.
Yeah.
So hopefully that adds a little something different to the book than we'd see if it was just a like word for word recreation of the movie.
Right. I mean, as long as you have the guy wanting to take a wicked dump, I'm okay.
Oh yeah, he's definitely going to take a wicked dump.
that line delivery. I think when I first watched the movie a long time ago, and the way he's just like, "Oh, I got to take a wicked dump," I'm like, "Oh my god, this is amazing."
Before I even started the novelization, I like rewatched the movie and I wrote down like the most important lines that have to be in the book no matter what, and that's one of them.
Yeah.
I love that movie so much.
It's so good.
Oh man. Now this is like so random, but I don't know if you ever listened to How Did This Get Made or even heard of this podcast, but they like 2012, real short, that podcast, they just look at kind of wacky movies and just talk about it. And it's Paul Scheer, Jason Mantzoukas, and June Diane Raphael, and they have like a guest. Anyway, they did Sleepaway Camp, and they brought up such an interesting point that like it blew my mind, which was like the relationship of the like who was who on the boat at the beginning, like the adults, and how they were all tied together. So I don't know like who was married to who was whose parent, and like who was sleeping with who. It's just it was really funny to listen to.
Your take on it, because I have my own take that I use for my book. So
I honestly have
the Judith's fan theories when you read the book.
Oh, I'm excited because I never thought of it before they brought it up, and then after watching it and then watching it again, I was just like, I actually have no idea who is related to who in this scene.
Yeah. No, there's not a lot of clarification in that scene, and maybe there is a script, but we couldn't find it. So.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited.
I just said, okay, I'm going to make my own little family drama with a dead mom and a long lost crush from college who's now his boyfriend and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
Make it a little romantic and fun. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, I love it so much. Oh
So
gosh.
good.
It's going to be amazing. But anyway, we're here for something else.
We are here to discuss The Tulsa Experience by Lawrence Block with Judith Sonnet, which I honestly have never read a lot of Lawrence Block short fiction, but like I love his Matthew Scudder books a lot.
I'm the opposite. I've kind of exclusively known his short fiction. I've got a few of his books on my TBR pile, but I haven't read them yet.
His Matthew Scudder books are some of my favorite, like kind of crime fiction detective stuff.
Yeah.
But no, like I've read a few of his short stories, but the Tulsa Experience, like we'll get into it a bit deeper later, but I read this story like 4 times before the podcast, and each time there's different little details I'm picking up every time. And I'm just like, it's just really clever how he constructs it all together.
Yeah, it's a deceptively simple story for a long while, and that's what makes the ending note so shocking to me, especially when I first read it. I read this in a 22 short story anthology called Night Screams, and it's got stories by Ray Bradbury and David Morrell and Clive Barker and Ed Gorman, but like the Tulsa Experience stands out in this little book. It was one of the first short stories I ever read that like truly disturbed me. And like it's not that disturbing now because like we've all read splatterpunk and we've all read extreme horror, but like I read this thing when I was in 7th grade and I'd never read anything like it, so it kind of opened my eyes to that side of horror.
Honestly, a similar thing happened to me when I was in like 7th or 8th grade. We were at the supermarket and I saw this like anthology book that had like this kind of gothic looking statue on it. It was actually my very first leisure paperback. I forget the name of the book, unfortunately, but I remember the first story was a Richard Lehman story.
I think I know which collection that is. I
remember just reading this Richard Lehman story in 7th grade, and like that kind of fucked me up a bit.
Do you remember which Lehman story it was?
I forget. I just remember it was really fucked up. But it's Richard Lehman, so it's like everything he's written, pretty much.
I've been rereading his short fiction lately, and it's been a blast.
I love it. Yeah, but, way back when I worked at Walden Books, when that was still around, my manager, she was a big Lawrence Block. She was just a big mystery person, like mystery fan. And she gave me Some Days You Get the Bear and like A Lamb to Slaughter, which are his were at the time 2 of his short story collections, Lawrence Block. And like I devoured them, and then she's like, "Oh, you like these? You should really read, the Matt Scudder books." And then she's like, "Oh, you should also read like George Pelecanos and Dennis Lehane and all these other people." So she really got me into that. But so like you were saying, the short stories were kind of the way I got into Lawrence Block was his, and those were like both of those were maybe one of my first like really big collections that I read that I was just like, oh, this is awesome. And it's funny that you brought this one up because the other story, and I wish I could remember the name of it, but there's one where it's like it was an assassin who stopped being an assassin, so he just goes and takes pictures, and like the way he does the pictures are just like he would set up being like a sniper kind of person. And it was that one like always stuck with me, and it's just this kind of interesting like thing where he would go and just all the detail and the sniper stuff in it and everything. But this one is, which we'll get into, this one is a lot of fun.
Yeah. And I think I might have that short story in one of my collections here. I've got too many stacks of books just hanging around.
Yeah. I think it's a struggle all of us have.
Yeah.
But before we
all of them, I've got some that are in storage back in Missouri at my hometown.
I have about two or three totes of books in storage right now. So
I miss my storage books. I wish they would.
So
like, I know I have this book, but I just don't have it.
I don't have it on me right now.
Yeah, I got really bummed out because I realized I have a copy of Donald Goyen's Swamp Man, and I really want to read that book, but it's in storage. So I went ahead and just rebought it. Because I was like, I'm not going to have someone dig through all those books just to find that one book. Like
it's faster just to rebuy it and get it as opposed to like dig through and then either ship it or drive it to me.
Yeah. Well, I've had an issue now where I have lost the keys to the lock of my storage container. So I got to go and have the guy cut the lock and then get a new lock.
That's horrible.
Yeah. It's
all the treasures you have.
That's a bad experience.
Bad experience. It's not the Tulsa experience, to say the least.
I mean, at least someone was having fun in the Tulsa experience. For horrible reasons, but like,
But before we dive into the story, we'd like to do kind of a media breakdown and just recommend some either books, movies, TV, music, stuff throughout the week. My recommendation is going to be kind of all over the place because I've had a very chaotic week. But that being said, Barry had its series finale, and I feel it's one of the series that really stuck the landing. Like, the ending was about as perfect as I wanted it to be, and it was not as what I expected it to be.
Nice.
But
I haven't seen that show. I'll need to watch it at some point.
you honestly, like, I'd recommend checking it out. It starts off a bit more. I mean, it's weird to describe to people because it's like, oh, it's about a hitman who wants to stop being a hitman and become an actor, and it's really funny, but it's also really dramatic, and it gets really tense as well. But it also just gets very dark. Like by season 4, the show's just like pitch dark in its tone.
Nice.
And Bill Hader also takes over the directing chair, like season by season. Like season 1, he directs a handful of episodes, and each season he directs more episodes until the last season where it's all him behind the camera.
Oh, that's awesome. I know he said he wants to do a horror movie, and I'm like, that would be awesome.
Mhm.
Honestly, after there's a scene in this episode in the season of Barry where like I'll describe it in like the most spoiler-free way I can, no character names or anything. But a group of people go into the sand silo because they've been trying to get sand to kind of create this real estate empire to import sand and kind of go legit from their criminal schemes. And everybody is in the center of the sand silo. They take a selfie, like, hey, we're going legit sand. One guy leaves, and the camera just stays. And then you hear a machine go off, and the characters just get sucked under the sand.
Oh, jeez.
And the camera just stays panned on the characters, and it just cuts to pure silence.
Yeah,
That's a terrible way to die, but it's also it's just
I
the way-
struggle so much starting modern shows because usually it's just like, oh, we'll get 2 seasons and then Netflix will fucking cancel it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I mean,
Like when Game of Thrones was coming out, everybody was telling me, you have to see Game of Thrones. And I'm like, I'm going to wait and I'm going to hear what you have to say about how it ends. And I bet on the right horse doing that.
I'll say this about the Game of Thrones ending because I get a lot of people angry with me at my opinion about it. I think the ending is good. However, the setup was terrible and nothing was.
I heard they rushed it because they wanted to do a Star Wars show.
They
Yeah,
did rush
they
it
did.
because it was a Star Wars show, and then there's Star Wars.
Star Wars dropped them.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, like the events that happen in the ending for Game of Thrones make sense plot wise and logic wise for like the narrative, but nothing was set up right, so nothing was rewarding because they rushed through everything.
That's lame.
Yeah, but think of all that time I saved not watching Game of Thrones.
That's very true. That's very
That's how I
true.
feel.
But the other thing I will say, I know you watched this, Judith, but I think you should leave season 3 dropped.
Yeah, I've seen season 3 twice now.
I've seen about 3 times at this point. I've memorized a few skits already.
I am struggling to choose what my favorite skit is. I think the driving crooner is fucking amazing.
Trevor Carter is really good. I'm kind of the sucker for the doggy door skit.
Yeah, well, it's got that horror element to it with that thing that came in through the doggy door.
You mean the pig with the Richard Nixon mask?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I'm not a fucking idiot. I know it's a pig with a mask, but for 50 seconds, I thought monsters were real.
I love when he's like, and I thought, great, I'm gonna get eaten. I don't have to go to work tomorrow. I'm relieved. I'm gonna have to go to work tomorrow because I'm gonna get eaten. What the fuck is wrong with me?
And I love that his like mind has been altered, and he blames it on seeing his wife get flipped by a flamingo dancer at a wedding.
Yeah.
He's like, it really bothered me.
He flipped my wife 8 times.
He's like been losing sleep over it. Like,
I also love the "Are Rules Real" skit.
yeah, there's this great thing about Tim Robinson's setups for skits where the moment you recognize which character is going to be the problem for everyone else you get this huge impending sense of dread.
Yeah.
Like for that skit when the old guy walks in and he's wearing the same shirt Tim Robinson is wearing, your first thought is like, oh no, he's going to be the problem.
Yeah, no, well, his first line is, "Hey, shirt brother."
And that just seals the deal. You know something bad's going to happen. But like also every skit, the moment you recognize the out of place character, it's just like this wave of dread comes over you. And it makes it so much funnier. No, that show so much. It's so fucking good.
Like I love showing people that show and just having their reactions be like, "What the fuck is this?"
It takes me like months to convince people to watch it, and then when they do, they just instantly become addicted to it. Yeah, no, I love. I think you should leave. I think that show's fantastic.
It's one of the funniest shows on TV, and like I know we're really a horror podcast, but like we're all goofy people, and we all enjoy a comedy here and there, and like legit the T-shirt brothers skit. I mean, it might have been because I was pretty stoned when I was watching it the first time, but the first time we entered that skit, I was laughing so hard I was crying. Like,
and they build up to the little girl's solo.
It's the worst solo in the fucking world.
It's awful.
It's so bad.
Amazing.
And besides that,
to follow the lyrics of what she's saying, and it's pure nonsense.
Yeah. But besides, I think you should leave.
I mean, like when I'm writing books and everything, I tend to not watch horror. I read it all the time, but like I'd rather, have a break from what I'm writing when I sit down to watch TV or go to the movies. So I tend to watch a lot of the comedies.
Yeah. I honestly, I mean, we talked about Barry a second ago, but like Bill Hader going into horror, like comedy and horror really goes hand in hand, I feel.
Okay, and I've written a lot of horror comedies too. So it's something I have a lot of affection for.
But besides that, I have been, I should say, the controversial Ted Lasso season finale happened, which I thought was a pretty good series finale, but a lot of people seem to hate it. Ted Lasso was in my comfort show when I was going through mental sad time struggles. Ted Lasso was there to kind of help me through some of my issues I was going with. But besides that, this week I've just been playing Diablo IV since the other day. Because the early release of Diablo IV, and I've just been going hard on that.
Yeah, if I don't know much about music, I know even less about video games.
Yeah, I'm one of the biggest nerds you'll ever meet. But I'm just like, when I was a kid, I should say like around middle school, eighth grade, freshman high school, Diablo 2 came out, and that was like my obsession. Like I was obsessed with it. My dad was obsessed with it. My best friend was obsessed with it. And then like the third Diablo came out and I wasn't too fond of it. But this one makes me feel like I'm back in 7th grade, 8th grade playing Diablo all over again. It's like, it's really kidding.
I might sound like a fucking idiot here. Is Diablo the one where you play as like Dante going into hell?
No, that's Devil May Cry, but those games are fun too. Diablo's Diablo's more.
It's okay. I haven't played any of this.
It's okay. Yeah, Diablo...
genuinely like the only video games I've ever played are like I played Mario on a PC when I was like in 8th grade.
Yeah.
I played Halo at someone's birthday party, and I didn't get it. So.
I mean, I've been playing video games since I was like a little kid, but
So like when I should admit, when Brian invited me to the like video game anthology, I was like, I don't know anything about video games. I know a lot about like YouTube and streamer drama. Let me write about that.
There's
it's
so
a big
much
part of video
drama.
games. So
there is. I fall down these rabbit holes on YouTube of like, okay, who do we hate this week? Like,
I fall down the same rabbit hole.
Ruining people's lives.
I do this. I'll put on a video essay of like, this streamer is terrible. Here's why, and I'm like, all right, let's go. Who am I mad at today?
It's funny because I have no investment in that community. I've got no horse in that race. I can just
but the drama's delicious.
watch it from a distance.
Yeah.
But the Diablo, so the concept is more of like this dark fantasy kind of story. Kind of like the world is kind of like a sword and sorcery, Conan the Barbarian style, like bleak worlds. And there's a war between heaven and hell. And your character exists on a world called Sanctuary, which is between the two. And he's kind of caught up in the conflict between everything that's going on.
Oh, poor little.
It is super fun and addicting because you're always getting new loot to like upgrade your character with, and it's always the cycle of the game is just like so addicting. But that's really been my week. Besides reading, I read the first few stories of Corpsemouth and other autobiographies by John Langan, which I've been putting this book off since I bought it last year. But Langan always one of my favorite short story writers. Like his writing's always great. And so far,
Fisherman, right?
Yeah, he wrote The Fisherman.
Okay, I read that. I really enjoyed that book.
The Fisherman's great. I think it's one of the best cosmic horror novels ever written.
Yeah.
His short stories kind of fall in. Some of them are gothic, some of them are cosmic horror. There's one story that's a coming of age tale that involves Godzilla.
Oh, I like Godzilla.
I like Godzilla. That's a fun story. Like,
yeah.
he helps out humans. He helps out humanity. Godzilla's the best. But so far I'm on the title story, and my favorite stories have been the Godzilla story was great, and he had one that was kind of like a riff on vampirism that I forget the name of right now, but that story was also really great. I'll have more of an accurate list of once I finish the collection. But if you do like The Fisherman, I would recommend his short stories collections, especially Safria. We did an episode that a long time ago, but that story's fucking great. Matt, what about you?
Yes. So I did some reading this week. The first thing I want to talk about is a collection from, and I am not going to pronounce this name right. If you think I'm bad at pronouncing more Englishized names, then just wait. Jaroslav Hasek, who he's a Czech writer from like the 20s and teens, and so long time ago. And he's got a collection that recently came out called The Man Without a Transit Pass and Other Tales. And if you've been listening, I've been kind of reading more of the absurd stuff from more Eastern European authors from way back when. And this falls right in line with that. It's very absurd stories, very specific to Czechoslovakia at that time before World War I and a little bit after World War I. And he was kind of like a little bit of a political activist at the time and really just commenting on like what was happening there. And the stories are all, even from now, this time, day and age of 2023, like the humor still hits, and it's still really like poignant kind of commentary just on the way governments are run and the way military actions and TV, or not TV, but like towns and just all this stuff. And it's just hilarious. The main story, The Man Without a Transit Pass, is about the TSA at the time, like wanting to really crack down and follow the rules. And it's this man that one of the ticket takers catches this man in the bathroom and is like, "Hey, where's your ticket?" And the guy's like, I couldn't get one. The train was boarding. I really had to go to the bathroom. So I ran straight into the bathroom. My plan was to pay the 5 coppers or whatever the amount of whatever the money was at the time, was to pay after this, but I like really had to go. And so this ticket agent's like, well, no, we're going to fine you 50 crowns because of this. And then it turns into this huge, like, kind of joke about the government process of like investigating. So they had to investigate like how long it took them to go to the bathroom and investigate the time it would take to get into the train on time. And so all these like, you know, task force and the amount of money, and he like comments on how much it costs to do all this stuff, all again for $50 fine. And they're spending thousands and thousands of dollars on it and trying to get him to pay this fine. And at the end, the whatever, like this outside agency is like, well, no, it was fair. He had to go to the bathroom. He didn't have enough time. And so like the story just ends saying like, well, our TSA government, you know, our TSA did a really good job on cracking down. They spent like $60,000 on this 50-cent fine or whatever it was, and we didn't get our money. And so it's just really crazy stories about that. Or like
it sounds like a Tim Robinson skit.
Yes, exactly. And again, going off of that, there's another story, because at the time it was really polite. There was like a Czechoslovakian like kind of saying where like a guest is your, not quite God, but the guest is the ultimate. You have to give them whatever the guest wants. And so this con man like basically decides like, I don't want to stay at a hotel. I want to stay at a fancy house. So he pretends to be a distant relative of this rich man and family in this town. And like through all these various things, he ends up staying at this person's house and ends up basically taking over the person's house, like firing the staff, getting other staff members to do stuff, inviting derelicts of the town into the house just to like drink and party. And the host like can't prove anything, or even if he can prove anything, he can't because he's a guest in the house. And so it's just this like comical kind of seeing, and eventually the guy, like the guest, the owner of the house goes insane and gets locked up because he can't handle this whole thing. Yeah, so all the stories are kind of follow that concept, but you know, again, also poking fun at like what's happening at that time and kind of calling it out and just being really satirical about what was happening. But yeah, I had an absolute blast with it. Let me see, like it's published by like a really kind of unique publisher, Paradise. No, I don't even know who this is published by, but anyway, if you can find it, like hunt it down. Man Without a Transit Pass. It's just a blast. And again, it goes right into a lot of this weird, absurd stuff I'm reading. And I was very happy to discover that. The other book I read and finished that just came out with Jonathan Raab's Project Vampire Killer. And this, I'm a huge fan of Raab's work. He has this style about him that it like captures kind of the gothic hammer horror kind of thing, but then he's also kind of really pushing for what like America does for vets, which I should say is nothing, and or just treats them very poorly and everything like that. And so he's kind of got this unique voice, and this one is this like the top of his game. If you've read his other work, like this is kind of taking all of that and doing like it a little bit better. Very basic concept. We have a vet who now kind of works kind of like a contractor, and he gets hired on to guard this set for this kind of newish hammer horror kind of production company that's making a vampire movie in this ancient castle in the middle of New York State. And so he's just got to go do that to like kind of get back up. He's drunk, depressed, all that stuff, and this is like his last shot to kind of get up and do something good. And he gets there and he quickly discovers there's something not right. There are real vampires in the woods, and they're people that he is working for. This production company knows that there's vampires there, and they have a whole plan on changing the world view on everything on vampires, on our relationship to God and the devil and governments and all this stuff. So it's very his usual kind of conspiracy theory kind of thing. And it just chaos ensues from there. He spends a bit of time describing these kind of fake movies throughout, and which is a lot of fun to kind of see him describing these fake B movies from the 60s and 70s and kind of making them really twisted and weird. And he lots of Easter eggs for his earlier work. He pulls in just a lot of his theories that he's been playing with, and it gets really psychedelic as you go through. There's just a lot of this weird alien weed that they all smoke that allows them kind of see some different things, and it's just I loved it. It's
you
really
lost
good.
me there. Honestly, I was like, "Ooh, vampire story, get me on that." And then you start saying alien weed, and I'm like, "Nope." Tapping out.
So just to let you know, I've had Project Vampire Killer on my to be read pile for like the last few weeks. It's jumping up now.
Yeah, no, you got to read it. He ramps up everything he's done, and it's just I loved it. I know he's kind of taking a break for a while, and this is a good way to go out on. This is just everything he's done. He hits it out of the park with this one. So it's definitely worth checking out. Project Vampire Killer is super cool. And yeah, I think that's all I'll talk about this week.
All right. And Vit LeMay, what about you?
I actually finished a horror film that I haven't seen, and I regret that I didn't see it earlier.
Which film?
The Autopsy of Jane Doe.
Oh, that's a great movie.
Yeah.
I know. I was completely bamboozled by it. And it's so funny because I went into it with I had no idea who were acting in it. I had no idea what the movie was about. I just remember I had in my head, because I remember my husband he had watched it, and he asked me when we were dating if I wanted to watch it, but I was at that time in a phase where I didn't want to watch horror movies because they made me uncomfortable. I hadn't dipped my toes into the horrors yet. And I was actually confusing it with another weird fucked up film that had to do with an autopsy as well. It was I thought this movie was about two medical interns who were fucking around with a corpse.
I know what movie you're talking about. What the fuck is that movie called? Aftermath?
Right? Yeah, I think it's that. Yeah. Yeah, so
it's a 40-minute short film, and it's really fucked up.
Yeah, I thought it was that film, and I was like, you know what? I don't want to watch necrophilia, just to be clear. And
necrophilia for fun.
No. And when I told my husband that, he just looked at me blankly. He's like, "That's not the film." And I'm like, "Really? That's not." He's like, "No." I'm like, oh, can you get it for me then? He's like, "Yeah, sure." And then we just sat down on a Saturday afternoon and we just watched it. I'm like, I'm really enjoying this film until the fucking cat scene.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, cats are my one rule with my books. I've killed dogs off, I've killed babies off, I've killed everybody off, but I have never once killed and never will kill off a cat in any of my books.
I truly appreciate that.
I killed a fucking donkey in a book.
I animal death. I draw the line with that. I never do. It's just super triggering for me. And that scene was so sudden in that movie that I was just bawling my eyes out, and my cat came over to me. He knew that I was upset, and I'm like, come here. And I was hugging him, and my husband was like, it's okay. I'll tell you when the scene is over. I'm like, thank you.
Yeah, cats are too cute.
Yes. So yeah, it was really good. And it was funny though. I thought Brian Cox was William Hurt for some weird ass reason. I'm like, I saw his face, and I'm like, William Hurt. I didn't know William Hurt was in this. And my husband was like, who? I'm like, William Hurt. Like he's in a bunch of movies. You've seen him. And then when I went online, like, oh, his name was Brian Cox. Whoops. And I
don't know if they look even close to the
They don't even look the same. My head just like, what old man actor
right now is headed on that Harrison Ford pipeline of being just a constant grump, and I'm here.
Yes. My head just registered old man actor
saying something horrible, and I'm just like, all right.
So it was funny. It was really funny. And I also Emil Hirsch, I kept looking at him like, why is that guy familiar? I've seen this guy in a bunch of films. Why? And then after the credits saw his name, like, oh fuck, I'm Emil Hirsch.
Emil Hirsch is either in some of the best and most creative movies or some of the absolute worst.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is. It's so. I watched
he was in An Evening with Beverly Loughlin, which I think is one of the best modern comedies. And
he was also in another horror film. I can't remember the name. I watched it, and he played this really paranoid dad who's trying to keep his daughter away from the government.
Oh, Freaks.
I think it might have been Freaks.
Yeah.
That was a really good one, and that actually made me convinced this guy should play Wolverine.
Right.
Because he had that bushy beard, and he was always wearing a tank top. And I'm like, you look like Wolverine. Please play him at some point.
But then he's also in movies like The Price We Pay, which were really frustrating and bad.
Yeah.
And everybody was like, oh, it's gory. And I'm like, yeah, there's 2 decent kills, I guess, if you squint and look at it right. But
yeah. I really enjoyed this movie. I was kind of surprised by the reveal. I was I fully believe that this was basically just okay, this corpse is possessed for some reason. And I was half right, but at the same time, the reveal kind of made me pissed off. Because, she's that person. And of course, she's getting revenge for that. And I'm like, well, I mean, if you want to screw over the patriarchy, I mean, you can do it that way, I guess.
I guess.
Yeah. That's one way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, but can maybe not kill all the women as well?
I mean, exhaust your other options before you aim for that.
Yeah. So yeah, I was really glad that I finally watched it. Then I was in a horror kick, and I asked my husband to get for me because my little brother told me that he was watching it. The 5th season of Slasher.
Is that show? I haven't seen it.
It's on Shudder. I know if you have Netflix, the first 3 seasons are on Netflix, but they then moved on to Shudder. And
I can't believe they made 5 seasons of that.
Yeah, they did.
Is it worth watching the new season? Because season 1 I kind of tuned out pretty fast.
Yeah.
But
I mean, they're all following the same formula. It's just a gory, gruesome murder mystery. It's there's always someone who is in a mask, or just you don't see who the killer is until the last couple of episodes. And in the 5th season, they go in 19th century Canada, 19th century Toronto.
Nice.
Isn't David Cronenberg in that season?
I don't remember.
Season 4. I know I saw a poster with his face on it. I'm like, there it is.
I think it might have been.
I got nothing better to do.
Yeah, I think it might have been season 4. But yeah, in season 5, they go almost the Jack the Ripper route. But in they kind of twisted around because it's a female killer. And I don't know. I've seen like seasons 1 to 3, and I don't remember which season it was. There was this one scene in either of the seasons, I can't remember, where the biology teacher is like grossly and brutally vivisected. Like on the table, like she's like the killer was paying revenge for all the pig fetuses and stuff. And that scene was brutal. Like they showed everything in that scene. I was like, oh, okay, shit. But I feel like in this season they went more just, with the severed head things, which is like, but I get it. It's 19th century. You want to go Sleepy Hollow? Okay.
Yeah.
But for me, I felt like they could have upped the gore a little bit since they did that with the first 2 seasons. But
yeah,
I don't know. I enjoyed it. It was like the characters were interesting. And I kind of had a feeling like who the killer was, and the ending was actually really cathartic and nice. I really enjoyed the ending. The ending was pretty good. It's like basically the premise of this season was like revenge is the best way to do it, and I'm like, yeah, definitely.
Yes.
It's like if you can't find any other options, or it's like if that's the only option that is the best, like go for it.
Yeah.
And the consequences be damned.
There you go. You're wearing a mask. It's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also started reading Tim McGregor's Allure. Because it's summer and I wanted to go into like a summer feeling, so I figured, hey, mermaids, I want to go back into mermaids again. See how that goes.
I like it.
And it's a nice novella, so I'm like 20% in, and I need to text Tim and be like, hey, what's with all the Icelandic names here? Like, what's happening, my dude?
Did he do it right?
Almost. I mean, there. Like, I saw there were 2 female names that, like, so far, like, I'm only 20% in, and one is Bryndís, and the other is Lilja, which is the Icelandic equivalent for Lily. And the Bryndís is the main character's sister, and he he shortens her name like he would do, for example, with Lucy, he would say Luce. And he says Bryn, and I'm like, Slenders never do that. And I know because like this is not an Icelandic setting. This is basically just a whole world that he created that is like mixing in with Scottish and Orkney and Scandinavian influences, I believe.
Okay.
But if you're gonna use pet names, you got to do that right. I mean, if I knew a person named Bryndís and she had a nickname, it would always be Dísa.
Oh.
Yeah, we would never say Bryn because why? That would just be an offense to her. She would take it personally.
That's really funny.
We usually, like, when it comes to D's, like any female names that end with D's, the nickname is mostly Dísa.
Okay. Huh.
So, little Icelandic tip for you guys if you want to use Icelandic names, especially if it has something to do with D's.
That's good to know. I'll note it down.
But other than that, I am enjoying it. The story's bleak as hell. Like they're living like on an island somewhere in north, and like the situation is really bad, especially for the women. I'm like, I hope they get their comeuppance. Like I hope those men die horribly. Basically, it's like this old time, like, hey, you're almost 15, right? You're a ripe age to get married. And I'm like, no.
Oh my gosh.
and it's like Brinty's the sister, like she's 17 and she's suddenly being sold off to be married to another guy. And I'm like, like I hating this part already. Hope it doesn't focus as much on that because I'm gonna get angry. But I love how the mermaid is described. And there are like illustrations in it.
Oh, neat.
And so like at the beginning there is like description of how like the bones of this kind of sea monster looks like, and it's like basically instead of a fin tail, it's like a tail really long like a serpent.
That's
cool.
cool.
And then the rib cage is kind of like bonded like that of a whale. And then the upper torso is like humanoid.
Huh.
Yeah. And I love that. I like my mermaids like creepy.
Yes.
This is why I enjoyed like Mira Grant's mermaids, because like even though they looked, the typical almost like the typical mermaids, but they had she had basically created her own biology with them. And like they had their own like culture and they had their own language, and I really liked that part in Mira Grant's story. The rest was crap, but yeah, I really like it when your usual conception of like a fairy tale monster is completely different than what you basically think.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to finish it. I'm going to try to finish it today.
Very cool.
Awesome. And Judith, what about you?
I've mostly just been writing lately. I've started reading a book that I've really enjoyed, but I'm only about 100 pages in it, and it's about 400 pages. The Jade Unicorn by Jay Halpern, which it's sort of a gonzo mix of like New York police procedurals with strange cult and cosmic horror.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
In the first like 10 pages, a teen girl is found butchered with a unicorn horn, and the corpse is like covered in green sperm.
What the hell?
And it's only gotten crazier after that. So. It's a lot. You guys know me. I tend to read like the older books, the things that could be found in like paperbacks from hell and stuff like that.
Yeah.
This one came out in 1979, and it's one of two books that Jay Halpern published. I haven't read the other, but like I can kind of tell he didn't read a lot of horror because he's got his own idea of it, and I love when people outside of the genre step into it because they always come up with something unique.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's got very like strange poetic dialogue and like weird ways of writing, and it's a fun book to fall into. But I have no idea where it's fucking going. We'll see. Like so far, all the victims of the unicorn, which I'm almost sure is an actual unicorn, but we're not there yet. After they're killed, their eyes will like calcify and show like the last image that they saw, which is like this horse man face with a horn. So
oh my gosh, that sounds amazing.
It's been really liking it.
That's awesome.
I've gone to the theater a few times lately just to relax and watch movies. And I'm sick of cliffhangers.
Me too.
I saw Fast and the Furious 10, and it ends on an Empire Strikes Back style cliffhanger.
Right.
And
hey, we did get that giant submarine though.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so excited.
That was just so insane.
Fast and Furious 11 is going to be fucking amazing. Yeah.
I can't wait. No, seriously, Fast 10 is such a fun movie. Like, it's what Marvel movies want to be, but can't.
Right. And then I saw, speaking of Marvel, Across the Spider-Verse.
How is it?
I saw that too.
It's fantastic. Be ready to be mad at me, though. It's a fucking cliffhanger.
Oh,
it's like oh man. Yeah. I sat there when it finished. I was like, holy crap.
I have a feeling it was
like a crowded theater, and right when the credits started rolling, like some full-grown man near the front of the theater just shouted, "What the fuck?" Like the theater was full of kids. He was just so invested, and he was upset that he's gonna have to wait
like a year. It's crazy.
It's gonna be worth it, though. I mean, they set up so much like interesting stuff, and I'm really curious about this villain. So
I love the first Spider-Verse movie, so I can't wait to see this one.
Same.
It's gonna blow your mind. It's fantastic. Did
you have issues with the audio?
I was thinking that was something with my theater. Is that part of the movie? That's a bummer.
Yeah, because
it was only at the beginning.
Okay. I'm trying to think. Ours, I think, did pick up a little, but apparently, I saw it this morning. Phil Lord like tweeted out, and I guess there's like articles where he's telling theaters to turn up the volume for the movie.
Or I don't know, maybe fucking have subtitles?
I watch everything with subtitles.
Me too. It's like, what's wrong with you people? I don't want to read a movie. I'm like, well, now you're complaining.
When Gwen is playing her drums, I struggled with her dialogue, but then right after she finished with the drums, it was fine.
Yeah, it kind of felt like, at least, and it could have been just my theater for some of it too. It just felt very flat sound wise. But it didn't bother me. I still obviously watched it and loved it, but it felt weird. Like what happened? And then it was just like, well, besides even the subtitle thing, it's like, how in this day and age did you not test it and say, oh, gee, the sound is a little weird. Let's fix it.
Well, maybe it is a theater thing, because like I know Wes Anderson has this problem where he messes with like aspect ratios so much that theaters don't know what aspect ratio his film should be set at.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
Just choose like the first shot of the movie.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh no, then the rest of it is squished because the first shot was in like letterboxed aspect ratio.
Yeah.
Like no. Hotel, like when I went and saw that at my movie theater in like small town Missouri, and half the movie was just compressed so small on that screen it was like a postage stamp. Like,
oh wow.
Yeah, no, it's very good. I did enjoy the movie. So.
Yeah.
Well, should we go visit Tulsa?
Yeah, we should go visit Tulsa and
let's head to Tulsa.
Get into what these brothers are up to.
There's a lot of other places you could go to.
Yeah, but no, Tulsa looks so cool.
Would that be Tulsa, Spain, on the coast of Brava?
No. Nothing bad.
You know, before we start, I just want to thank Chandler Bing from Friends for introducing me to Tulsa, because otherwise I probably would not know anything about that place. I remember when I was in Japan and I was doing went to to an international school to talk to Japanese kids who had been abroad and were now in an international school. And there were two Americans that are also with among the groups, and they were both from Tulsa. And the minute they said that, I just jumped up and said, "The Sooner State." And they just looked at me like I was crazy. They're like, "How the fuck do you know that?" And I was like, "Chandler taught me." So I'm actually kind of surprised they didn't put "Hey, it's in the Sooner State" in the story.
He does go into great detail describing everything about the town.
Exactly. So I'm like, well, maybe point out it's in Oklahoma. It's called the Sooner State.
I know we had, no problem. I know we had kind of talked a little bit at the beginning of this, but like, what was it, Judith, that really kind of stuck out for you on this one?
I think, like, genuinely, I was just so young when I read it. All I'd really read from horror was like some Stephen King and Ray Bradbury and R.L. Stine. So like this was my first teeny tiny taste of something that was designed to shock people. And I fell in love with that type of story immediately afterwards. So this was like my gateway drug that led to like Richard Lehman and Edward Lee and Jack Ketchum and books like that.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So for the audience at home who have not read the Tulsa Experience, I'll run through the plot very quickly, and it will have spoilers.
Oh yeah. The story is deceptively simple. Like the plot is very straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to describe this, and it'll take like maybe a couple sentences, and that'll be it. But you should still read it. It's a unique story, and it's really a lot more immersive than I'm describing it to be. So the main plot is this guy is going on vacation with his brother, and they choose Tulsa, Oklahoma. Which everybody at his office kind of chides him for, because they're like, oh yeah, you could go anywhere and you're going to Tulsa, Oklahoma. Like, I'm sure there's something to do, but like, come on.
Right.
But he's like really excited about it, and they go. And most of the story is just describing their vacation, the museums they go to. They meet like a prostitute. They have fun. It's a good time. And then all of a sudden they're at a grocery store in Tulsa, and they abduct a random woman, take her into the woods, rape her, kill her, and then head back to their hotel. And when he comes back home, he has a shirt that he bought from one of the gift shops, and he keeps it with a collection of shirts he's bought from all across America.
Yep.
It's like, oh, they've been doing this for a while. And like the raping and killing, it happens in like a sentence or two. Like, it's really fast.
It's a paragraph.
We got her. We had some fun with her. We killed her and left her.
Yeah. But that's, I mean, even though it's so simply written like that, it's still disturbing as hell. Like, it left a really bad taste in my mouth.
Well,
especially the justification, where they were saying we had really fun with her. I'm like, I hate you.
And that's exactly the point. They're so glib about it. It's just a part of their vacation.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, like, one thing I love about this story that I'll say is like, because I like to read travelogues a lot, and the story is a travelogue.
Yeah.
But everything in the story has such a sinister undertone once you get to that ending.
Yes. Well, I mean, it's like hidden between the lines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was so funny because when I started reading it, I was like, okay, I'm getting a lot of info about Tulsa. And I was telling my husband about that. I was like, I'm supposed to be reading a horror story. And he's like, okay. And then I gave him a few sentences, and he's like, that doesn't sound horror at all. I'm like, I know. And then as the story progresses, I'm like, wait. I'm getting something here. My spidey sensors are tingling. and then I threw a couple of sentences to him, and he's like, yeah, this is not going in the good direction. I'm like, nope.
You guys thought that Judith was letting you down, but
yes, I actually had this thought. I was like, Judith, you're an extreme horror writer. What the hell are you giving me here? It's like, I've read the nasty book from you, so what the hell?
This is where it all started. This is what got me.
I love that. This was the birth of your depraved mind.
Yeah.
Well, and like I love it because the way, and we talked about reading his other stuff, and I've read a lot of his work, and he's very straightforward and detailed in like simple sentences. It's just it's not flowery. It's just straight into it. Like you read reading the Matt Scudder books, and like you look at the reviews, and people are like, "Oh, I feel like I'm reading a police report," but then like I can't stop reading it because he has a way to hook you, and that's the same for this one. Is like he's just straightforward. These two brothers, and like you get these little hints. They're like, "Well, we have 4 weeks," or the main brother is like, "Oh, I have 4 weeks of vacation, and I use it, basically each season." And it's my brother and I, and we go to these places, and my brother can close his shop and everything. And so you're getting all this kind of like, okay, they go to a lot of random towns, nothing very big. They're from New York. And as you get those, and especially when you hit that end, you're like, okay, every year they're at least killing 4 people. And they're so glib about it. Like you said, Judith, they're just like, oh, we love the bus tours because the bus tours are great, and
they're great for scouting.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Especially, you're like you suddenly look at buses now a whole different way. You're like, I'm not going on a bus tour anytime soon.
Or like, what was it? The scene when he gives the little girl the stuffed panda he wins, and he's like,
God.
I'm pretty sure he told her, "You don't take pandas from strange men." And we laughed, and her mother and father laughed, and we went off to play miniature golf one more time.
Yep. Yep. Like it leaves a really bad taste in your mouth. You start to think like, okay, so what if their tastes change and they target children next?
Well, and it's like, what if they choose a different person? Well, they obviously choose a different person each time, but like different type of people. Like, oh, this time we're targeting a full-grown woman. This time we're targeting a teenager. This time a child. Like, they don't want to do the same thing every vacation.
Exactly.
It's a new experience.
And and I was talking about the hints as well. It's funny like how he managed to offhandedly just mention like, oh yeah, by the way, we don't have children. Like we're childless. My brother doesn't have any like family. I'm divorced, and I'm like, oh, I get the reason why now.
Yeah.
The one detail I love in the story is he's talking about his clothing, and he's like, I always buy a T-shirt wherever I go as a souvenir, but no one ever sees me wear them because I'm always wearing a button-up shirt and tie at the office. But those T-shirts I buy make great undershirts, and then like he's just wearing his trophies every day.
I know. And that's the sinister part, because you know that he's like showing them off. People don't realize it. And he's like, yeah, I can get away with it. People can ask me to say, it's just a funny T-shirt. It's like a stupid souvenir thing that people do from time to time. And he actually meticulously thought about it, because they were talking about like magnets. And they were like, I don't want to clutter this shit with my home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, because that would leave evidence. But with this is basically just a thing that I bought. It gives a good memory.
Well, and the one I love the hints regarding I think it's the National Park Service about only taking pictures, never leaving footprints or whatever it is, never leaving, and that like again ties into it. Even like when they meet the prostitutes and they each get a card, they're like, well, we can't take anything with us, and they rip up the cards, and like, or the comment about the postcard at the beginning, because the guys at work are like, oh, send me a postcard and all this stuff, and he's like, well, I never do, because obviously that would just be another track to what they do in each of these towns.
But he always makes a joke about it too, where he's like, oh, I guess I beat the postcard to you then.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
it's like everything is well thought out from them, and I was like, this makes them the most horrifying serial killers that I have read about.
Right?
Yeah.
Just yeah,
And
especially go on.
there's throughout, especially extreme and splatterpunk horror, especially after this came out, serial killer pairs are very popular. So like we have Greg and Vaughn from Genital Grinder by Brian Harding. There's Dickie and Balls from The Big Head by Edward Lee, characters like that. And it's like these two almost fit that archetype, but they're not over the top about it. They're not like the type of people that you look at and go, oh yeah, they definitely like kill people, drill holes in their heads and fuck them.
Yeah.
And it kind of lulls you, especially the very first time you read it, it lulls you into being on their side and enjoying their vacation and having fun in Tulsa. And then they kind of turn on you when they're like, oh yeah, we're going to kill someone.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not on this vacation anymore, guys.
Yeah. Like, I don't want this. Yeah. And I just love that, like, even that last day, like the way he does it with like their fourth day there, they're like, oh, we drove around checking out spots, but he didn't, like, the one time he didn't describe what they checked out. And then it goes to the next day and they're like, because the grocery store, I think, was like their second stop. They went somewhere, I can't remember where off the top of my head, but they went somewhere, they didn't like it, and then they hung out at the grocery store for a couple minutes and they saw the lady, and that was it. And you're like, so it's just that like little twist right there where you're like, oh no, this isn't good. And it's just perfect. And even like the way he describes what they do even after, like where they hide everything, it just ties into the whole fact that they knew that town because they spent the last week touring it. And you're just like, holy crap. But
they're real good all American boys.
But they're like Lawrence Block, just because again, like the first stuff I learned from was Scudder. He has a really good story called Catch and Release. I don't know if you've read that one.
I don't think I have.
So it's about this guy who is. It's written as like you're reading a fisherman's story, where like he's a catch release fisherman, but he's really kidnapping and releasing women after he has his way with them. And it kind of follows him as he's going on his next trip. And it's just like this was it's very cold, it's very direct, but once you get to what he's actually doing, there's this big oh fuck moment that like Lawrence Block's really good at getting you into that like lull sense and then just kind of pulling the rug up from under you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Which it's why Tulsa Experience, even like though I've read so much that's like technically harder and a lot gorier and nastier and meaner, this story still affects me whenever I read it because it manages to always like get me in that lulling sense of comfort.
Yeah.
It takes it away from me.
Well, and it's cool because
I always say like a good story is one that you can return to and still enjoy as much as you did the first time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why Richard Lehman is one of my favorite authors, because I can reread those books over and over again and find new things and have fun with them. But like this short story, you can read it so many times and not get bored of it.
Yeah, exactly. And I liked what you were saying earlier, just about how like with the pairs of serial killers but like thinking about this and just some of the other stuff, like I think of The Strangers and that concept of like, oh, well, you were just home. It's that kind of idea here where it was just like, oh, you were the person at the grocery store that we thought looked good. Like like again, none of this, the only premeditated thing about this story and their little vacations is that they're going to kill somebody, and it just doesn't matter who. And that's just that frightening concept, especially as you're getting this just fun isn't the right word, but this enjoyable little time of them on their tour and what they do, and it's just like, all right, well, we're at our time now, and you look good, so we're gonna kill you.
I think like human horror, especially like this, really works best when there's no clear motive to it.
Yeah.
Like if you have like a serial killer story where the killer has like an elaborate plot that they have to explain to every victim, then it stops being scary.
Yeah. And like
I got accused of plotlessness many times with No One Rides for Free, but like I found the idea of just a man who gets in people's cars and forces them to do what he wants for no reason other than it's fun for him to be terrifying.
Yeah.
And I developed that sense from reading this story at such an early age, because like, no, they don't have a plot. They don't have motives. They don't have a twist. They just do it for fun.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't abused as kids. They didn't have a traumatic childhood with a mean mother.
Yeah.
They're not drilling holes in people's heads and fucking them.
No.
Well, and it's interesting that you bring that up, because that totally is. I mean, like, if you actually look at the story, it's just them doing stuff. There isn't like a plot thread that is taking you through. You're just on their adventure with them, and the way he makes them human, again, just what they like, because he spends that time like, oh, we really like bus tours, and we wish more towns had bus tours, and we were gonna go see a orchestra, but we decided to go see a movie. Or it just very mundane, like human stuff, which then goes exactly to what you say of this like switch of we're gonna kill somebody is just more horrifying, because then as a person, you're like, okay, it literally could be anyone on this street that could be a murderer at any time, and they could just kill me for no reason.
Yeah. I want to do some research and find out when the story was published, because I'd be interested to see kind of like where it was first published and when.
Well, let me look my copy out here and see if it's got it.
Because I have the Kindle version of this, and it just has dates to back.
And this was originally published in Some Days You Get the Bear.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's original to that. Okay.
Yeah. See, I thought it came out in the 80s, so I was wrong.
I thought it came out in the 80s too. That's why I was looking at either the 80s or the 70s.
Yeah, no, 94.
Huh. But yeah, like, I don't know. I feel like, again, I got into Lawrence Block from his crime fiction, the Matthew Scudder stuff. But like, even the Scudder stuff, he gets really dark in those books.
Well, crime and horror mixes so well.
It does. They do mix very well. I will say, if you
mentioned Langan earlier, like he said in an interview, he considers himself more of a crime author than a horror author. He just goes harder on the violence than most crime authors do.
And he looks straight the word rump a lot.
He does.
He really likes the word rump.
Every time I write the word rump, I am thinking of Richard Lehman.
Oh man, I will say I didn't read more Lehman. We covered The Island a couple years ago on the podcast.
Yes, we did.
And that was quite the experience.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
Y'all should cover After Midnight someday. That's genuinely one of his most bonkers books. Like, that's saying something considering all his crazy books. But
yeah, we haven't dived too deep into some of the extreme stuff. We did Ed Lee once.
Yeah, I thought we did it twice.
Oh, we did Ed Lee twice.
There's a lot to work with Lee.
There is. Well, we did The Pig, which
Ooh, fantastic.
I had read that before, but I know Matt, and it was Matt's first time going through The Pig.
Yeah, that was a wild ride.
I love the pig.
It definitely entertained me.
I mean, the thing about Ed Lee is like, if you're grossed out, it's part of the joke. He wins.
Yeah.
Like Ed Lee, like he's a really good writer. Like there are things in the pig that are like very, very well written, but he just really just wants to gross you out. That's what he cares about.
And he's damn good at it too.
He is really good at it.
Have you read Flesh Gothic?
I have not.
That one's one of my favorites.
I've read a bunch of his short stories, including The Baby, which I regretted doing that.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's not a good one. That's one of the most disgusting things I've ever read. Like,
I think it's pronounced Drypthilithist is one of my favorites. The nasty one about the guy that like eats snot.
Oh my god.
my first Ed Lee story was Header.
Oh god.
That's
drill a hole in their head and fuck them.
So wild.
And Header is actually a really good novella too. Like just
actually they made a pretty decent movie off of it too.
Yeah, Jack Ketchum's in it.
Yeah, and Ed Lee, both of them are in the same scene.
That's insane.
There's some like county cops. Got their cute little uniforms on.
So good. The like I will say, seeing something like the Tulsa Experience, just to get back on topic, is the clinical coldness of the story is what makes it so effective. And I also like Judith point out the human horror element of it too. It's like the fact that they don't explain, they don't even give detail. We know he kills kills her through strangulation, but it's just my brother had fun, and then I had some fun, and then he mentions the brother's like my brother told me I had to do this one because he did the last one, and I forgot about that. And it's just like we get so little details, but our brains do so much imaginative work to like connect everything that makes it so much worse.
Well, and it's so simply written, but so evocative. Like you picture it like a movie, even though it's like 5 or 10 words.
Yeah.
Right.
And then it just ends with him going back to work with his Tulsa t-shirt right under his button-up shirt and tie.
And his like coworkers making fun of him a little bit, and he's like, "Oh, I don't care. Tulsa was wonderful. I had a great."
But thank you so much for joining us today, Judith.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This was fun.
I'm glad you had a good time. And where can our listeners reach out to you?
Well, I am no longer on Twitter, so you can't reach me there.
You finally broke the chains. Yes.
I got so sick of that site, got rid of it, and I encourage everyone else to do the same because it was a huge weight off my chest.
Yeah.
Yeah, Twitter's the absolute worst.
Yeah, I'm thinking of doing something on TikTok too. That Bentley Little doesn't have any social media presence, and I bet he sleeps like a fucking baby.
Oh, I'm sure he does.
I know. I was just saying, like, like it's funny, like, to think about like those who aren't on anything. Like Brian Evanson isn't on any social media yet. I'm sure his books sell like crazy whenever they come out.
I see his books at like Barnes and Noble and Books A Million.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like it can be done.
Yeah. But anyways, I am on Facebook under Judith Sonnet. And I've got an Instagram, Full-Time Horror Junkie. And those are kind of the two that I maintain and keep track of.
Okay.
There is a TikTok of mine out there, but I don't use it much. So
Yeah, no, I think Twitter's been a shit show for a while, but since Elon took it over, it's just gotten worse and worse and worse.
Yeah, it's the nightmare. And there's so much dogpiling and harassment and drama. Yeah. It was like every time I logged into it, it was something negative. And I was just like,
Twitter.
why are you encouraging something negative in your life like every morning when you wake up?
Right.
I got my Twitter locked last night, actually.
Nice.
It was with the dog paddling going on. Duncan Ralston tweeted something that people were dog paddling him about. So I tweeted at him and I just said, "I'm sorry for this opinion. I'm going to request that you unalive yourself, and I'm going to go ahead and cancel you." And then I violated their rules against promoting or encouraging suicide or self-harm.
Way to go.
Well, don't do that.
Yeah.
When the tweet was obviously a joke, but
Yeah, but Twitter doesn't understand nuance.
No.
that's true. It was really as soon as that happened, my friend tweeted me, and then my Twitter screen just went white, and it was like, "Your account is now locked." And I'm like, "What?"
Geez.
Speaking of Duncan, though, because he's a sweetheart, he's doing the forward to a limited edition hardcover of No One Rides for Free that's coming out soon.
Nice.
Awesome. Who's publishing the limited edition?
I am.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's just going to be up on Amazon for a short amount of time, and then I'm going to remove it, and I'll order author's copies so I can take it to conventions and sell it in person.
That's awesome. And Matt, where can listeners get in touch with you?
Yeah, well, before that, let me do my usual little spiel for Afflicted, and just to let everyone know that the ad playing before the show is just to help get Afflicted Season 2 funded. I know they're a little bit behind on their goals for June and or not July yet, but they have a goal for July and they're not close to it. So if you can reach out and help support that. It is an audio drama podcast set in the 1960s, focused on a family that's being tormented by an unseen entity. There is a Bell Witch that might have returned after 150 years, or it could be somebody else. If you listen to season 1, which I've said before and I'll say again, is an excellent season. There's a book in that, a demonic book bound in human flesh that might just be in this season too. So make sure you help check them out. You know, it is something that's coming out June of next year. They really need the money to help hire the people performing and the music production and just the audio production of all of that. You can go on to indiegogo.com/afflicted and you should find it there. If you follow Tanya Ransom on Twitter, she's posting a lot about it, and you could retweet that if you can't give any cash. But do your best to help. Listen to it. Nightlight is also her other podcast, and that's a great one too. You should definitely check those out. I am on Twitter at BrandonBergDM.
All right, and Vit LeMay, I switched the order they go in, but where can listeners get in touch with you?
That's fine. They can get in touch with me on Twitter at VitLeMayS.
All right. You can follow me on Twitter at Rudy53088, and be sure to give Abyss a follow with Add Into Staring. And this is Richard Gerlach saying, keep staring.